Good morning everyone, or good afternoon, depending where in the region you are based, and welcome to the fourth OnRobot virtual coffee chat. So, as always, grab your favorite mug, have a cup of coffee or tea, and sit back and relax, and let's get started. So, in the previous sessions we have talked about the why, the when, the where, the what, and today we're going to talk about the how of implementing collaborative applications for SMEs particularly. So as you can see today we have a nice setup here, and we're actually going to show a couple of applications today, so it's going to be a bit more interactive, I think a bit more interesting for everyone, just to see some examples of how easy it really can be to incorporate collaborative applications in your production. So the program today is basically, I'm going to give a very brief summary of the first three sessions. Maybe some of you have not attended, so I'll just give you a brief background about what we have talked about and how it links to today's session. Then for the how to implement collaborative applications, I'm going to talk about two things sort of briefly. The first one being an evaluation of the application you're actually intending to automate, what you need to consider there. And then also the second thing will be look at your internal resources and knowledge. What do you have in place? What skills and knowledge do your staff have? And what do you might need to get help with from outside, whether it's a consultant or a system integrator or similar. And then we're going to show two applications today, kind of plug and play applications, quite simple, but it will give you an idea of how simple a setup can be and how fast it can actually be to set up in your own production. So let's get started. So first session I talked about a few months back was the why. Why do people like to automate? Why do they use collaborative automation? And for those of you who attended, you might remember the 6 key reasons why companies typically are automating. One being the lack of people, which is something we're seeing everywhere. It could be lack of people in general. It could also be lack of people with specific skills that are required in your factory or in your company. Second one being improving your competitiveness, right? So doing things automatically or with automation rather than doing with humans, doing it manually, can often lead to a very big improvement in your competitiveness and also in the efficiency of the way you're doing things. The third is improving your quality and repeatability of the process you have. The fourth being basically improving your production process. So doing things a little bit different than you're doing now when you do it manually. Of course, reducing working accidents is important. So a lot of tasks that are done today manually, it often leads to wear and tear on humans, and it leads to accidents, sometimes very serious accidents. So if you can do that via automating it, it would be much better for sure. And the sixth reason basically was introducing innovations into your manufacturers, which could be one way of standing out between competitors, doing things smarter and better and different than your competitors, for instance. Then we talked about the reasons for using collaborative applications, which to some degree is similar to just using automation, but it gives you other things like flexibility, for instance. You can use a collaborative setup with a few easy changes. You can use it for many different applications rather than just one fixed applications, which is typically the way for industrial automation. You also have, because of this, because you can easily change things. SMEs are normally high mix, low volume, so it means you're working with many different products in different shape, different size, and so on. So you often need to change your setup depending on what product you're working with. And this is really what you can do with collaborative automation and collaborative end effectors particularly, very easily. We're talking about safety, so like you can see here, the application we are showing today, we got no fencing around here. We can easily stand next to the robot when he's doing the applications. It's very safe. And another thing I talked about also was future-proofing, right? So what we have seen over the past 1.5 years with COVID is often manufacturers have not been able to get the staff to the factory maybe they had to completely close down, or they had to close down for certain periods, or do minimum amount of work, basically because they didn't have enough staff to coming in. So imagine you could do that with simple collaborative applications rather than manual work, so you can continue working even in situations like COVID-19, which for sure will, it's not the only time in our lifetime we're going to see such a situation. So future-proofing yourself is very, very important. And then I also talked about KPIs. What are the improvements you will see typically for automation? So we are looking at 6 different factors, and the average improvement you saw was somewhere around 20% improvement over doing things manually. So that's a big improvement. So the second sessions, I was talking about the when. So when is the right time for starting your your automation process? And it's a lot to do with the why. Why are you doing, so like shortage of staff, for instance, or you have a lot of work accidents, a lack of competition, a loss of competition for that matter. These are the right time, that now is the time to start automating your process. But it could also be that you maybe have a new process, you don't really know how to do it, you don't have staff that can do it, so you're looking at outsourcing it. But why not install a simple collaborative application instead that might be able to do it for you? Or it could just be a new process, as I said, that maybe you have no idea how to do it, and you don't, it might take a long time to train people how to do it, but instead it's possible maybe that you can get a collaborative application to do it for you. It's also one way, as I said, in terms of innovation, differentiate yourself from competitors. So if the only thing you're fighting on is basic price and quality, where maybe all your competitors, the market in general is there's not much difference from company A to company B to company C. So this might be one way of standing out, between your competitors. So your end users or whoever is buying from you, are looking more positive on you as a company. It could also be a way of overcoming bottlenecks. So there might be, some of you might have seasonal works where some cases, certain applications, the processes are more under, more under pressure than others. You need extra staff. Rather than that, you can, put in collaborative applications, that can work basically 24/7 in your production. The third one I did about a month ago is the where and the what. So we talked about, what kind of industries are typically using robot automation, and it could be any industry really. The 2 big ones, of course, is automotive and electronics or semicon and so on. But in theory, you can actually do in any industry or any sector for that matter, especially with products like this that is all electric. So we see it in hospitals, we see it in restaurants, in banks, in universities, etc., etc. So there's really nowhere you can't automate these days. Then I was talking about which areas in your company that you will typically automate. It could be the laboratory. It could, of course, in the production hall itself, production processes, that will be the most common one. But as I said, you also see it in areas like pharmacies, in restaurants, around universities and so on. So there's many different areas where you can do automation these days. You see, coffee shops that has it. You see robot bartenders and so on. There's really no limit to where you can automate these days with collaborative automation. Then the last session I also talked about 9 manual jobs, very common jobs that that gives a lot of wear and tear on your body for your workers, maybe creates a lot of accidents. So I talked about those kind of tasks which typically goes under the 4 Ds. So dirty, dangerous, dull or boring, and delicate. So process where you do heavy lifting or you do repetitive movement all day long, and it makes issues with your back or your wrist or whatever. So these are things that could be easily automated in many cases. Then lastly, I talked about the different kind of processes where we normally see collaborative automation. So these are things like assembly is very common, surface finishing like sanding and polishing and so on. Machine tending is probably the most common one, the most popular right now, especially with a dual setup like this, which can save you a lot of time. You see material handling, so it's a typical pick and place. You see testing, inspection, packaging and palletizing is also very common, and things like dispensing as well. So these are the sort of the common trade that you'll be seeing. And if you didn't follow the first 3 sessions, you can actually find them on our YouTube channel, on the OnRobot YouTube channel now. You can have a look at yourself as and when you have time. So now you know the why, you know the when, you know the where, and you know the what. So we get to the how to start. So the first thing I just want to briefly go through is what I call an application evaluation, right? So you need to know, where are you today, what do you want to do, how complex is it, and what are the factors you need to look at. So as an example, take a pick and place application. So what kind of part are you doing? Is it round? Is it smooth? Is it heavy? Is it light? What kind of material is it? Is it glass? Whatever. So this is the first thing you're looking at, so you understand what kind of end effector you need to be able to pick that part. Also, where do you pick it from? Is it a constant location, or is it you pick up from different locations all the time? So maybe you need a sensor, you need a vision system or something like that. Where do you drop it off? You drop it off onto a conveyor belt. You drop it into a box. Example. So where do you drop it off, and how difficult is it? Do you need a vision system to find the drop-off location, for instance? Another thing you have to look at is the robot or the application itself, is it going to work with other types of machinery? It could be some data exchange of some sort between different kind of machines. Is that a part of it? Do you need simple I/O signals to do that kind of communication, or are there other parts of it that is required? What kind of productivity are you looking at? What kind of performance are you looking at? So what is your performance today doing it manually versus what do you expect when you want to automate it, and how much improvement do you need to do, right? So we're looking at productivity. For instance, how many hours per week do you need the robot to work? What is the required output per hour or per week? So what's the cycle time per product or per process, depending what it is. You also need to look at your environment, for instance. So sometimes you have processes that are in very dirty environments. It could be wet environments, it could be dusty, it could be hot temperatures and things like that. So you need to consider that. For your robot, for your end effectors, it could be, maybe you need IP67 because it's a wet environment. Maybe you need the covers for your robot arm because it's either wet or dusty or whatever. So these are things you also need to look at. How complex is the process? Low, moderate, high. Also, how is your team accepting that you want to go from manual process to automated process? So are they worried about the robots? Are they worried they're going to lose their jobs? Are they worried they're not going to be able to handle the robot on a day-to-day basis? Do you feel that confident if they're trained that they will be able to handle it without you having to hire more higher qualified staff, engineers, whatever, to start doing the process? Another thing is, of course, when you talk about collaborative applications, one of the key things here we're talking about is safety. So also, are you buying the right devices? What is considered collaborative? What is not? Do you need fencing? Do you need scanners? And so on. What is required for it to be safe, unless you want to fence off everything. But then, of course, ultimately, it's not a collaborative application if you need to fence it off. So, before we go on to the processes, one thing I just want to talk about as well is kind of your internal resources and knowledge. So once you have done your evaluation, do you have enough knowledge to pick, say, the right type of robot or the right type of end effectors? It could be, what is the payload required both for the robot and for the end effectors? What is the reach needed for the robot arm? What is the speed required to be able to do your specific cycle time and so on? In terms of end effectors, do you know how to pick the right end effectors? What is required? Maybe it's a 2-finger or 3-finger. Maybe it's a vacuum gripper. You know, what is required? Do you need a force torque sensor? Do you need a business system? Are you able to pick out the right type that are also able to work together in terms of software and so on and so forth? Do you have the right staff to be able to set this up both mechanically and be able to either already know about how to program or learn easily how to program a collaborative application, or do you need an external SI, for instance, to help you do it? What about doing a risk assessment? Because that's for sure is a requirement if you want to install it as a collaborative application without fencing. Do you have people that know how to do it? You know, are they familiar with ISO standards like 15066, which is to do with collaborative application, which kind of talks about you know, what are the different kind of forces you can work with if you're using a grip, and what are the requirements that are needed if you want to consider it to be a collaborative application. Also, are your staff on board? Do you think you are able to train them, as I said, to be able to handle this? It could be day-to-day, start the cobot, close down the cobot at the end of the day if it's not, you know, 24/7. Or are they familiar with safety stops and these kind of things? You know, so you need to understand what level of skills do your staff have, and what will they be able to do, and how confident do they feel working with and working around collaborative applications. And there'll be more as well. But I mean, if you need to go into more details, it's not going to be a 20-minute presentation for sure. So these are just some of the key steps that you need to look into when you're going into a collaborative application. But for sure, it's a lot easier than going into a big industrial process, you know, where you maybe use big industrial robots that need to be bolted down, you need to fence off, and so on and so forth, and maybe you have a lot of other equipment that you need to install. So collaborative applications in general can be sometimes very, very simple, that you can actually set it up yourself. We have seen lots of clients do that. All right, so now let's get started with applications. So you can see, you know, what we're talking about. We're just going to show you a couple of applications, as I said, you know, very simple applications, and show you how easy it can really be done. So to help me with that, I'm going to invite my colleague Branson in, who is our technical expert. So Branson, please, let's come in and what are we looking at today? What are we going to show them today?
So today we'll just be showing two different applications. Okay. So both are very similar, so both are doing packaging. So the first one, we're just going to pack some bottles into the boxes, as you can see over here. So we'll be making use of three products. Okay, one is the 3-finger gripper, because we're going to pick bottles which is circular. So with the 3-point contact, is the I would say is a very good and secure grip. And then to pack or to cover the boxes, we actually use our electric vacuum gripper, which is the VGC10. And lastly is, of course, we're going to incorporate it together with our vision system, which is the OnRobot Eyes. So we have different features, but we're just going to use one feature for this particular application, which is the landmark feature. Okay, so what this landmark feature does in a nutshell is that when we have a mobile robot or a mobile workspace, okay, the landmark feature can actually help to offset the position whenever the workspace or the mobile robot comes in, and then it stops, and the position will definitely be not 100% the same position where you thought it to be. So with that, the landmark feature can actually do the offset, and you don't have to worry about reteaching everything again. So yeah, I think that's the first application that we're going to show you.
So can I ask you, in terms of mechanical installation of these three products and cables and so on that is needed, how long did it take you to install on the cobot?
In terms of hardware wise, probably 10, not more than 15 minutes. Yeah, for dual setup, and plus the eyes, probably 10 to 15 minutes.
So that's really how fast it can be done. You know, you have the cobot in place, 10-15 minutes, you can easily install this, and you're ready for the programming. So today we are going to show it on a UR cobot, and in terms of programming, we are going to use our own OnRobot UR cap. Which is basically the software that is used, and the good thing with this is that on OnRobot we are just using one single software program to control both grippers and the eyes at the same time. So again, we make it very, very simple, which is easy for you as an end user, especially if you've never worked with robots before and so on. It's something everyone can learn, really. And of course, no fencing around. So we talk about collaborative applications. It means it has to be safe. So again, you're not picking anything sharp or anything. The grippers are safe, cobot is safe, the whole application here is safe. So no need for fencing, no need to worry about having people walking around if this was a production setup. So let's get going, see how it works.
Okay. So we're just assuming that this is a tray, okay, where we put the bottles here. So with the landmark calibration plate over here. So assuming all the bottles are done and checked, everything, whatever that needs to be done is done. So we just place it on a tray, okay, and then we can just move it into the frame of the camera, and then the vision system will take care of the rest of the positions that's offset. It can be all offsetted properly, and you can pick and place at the correct position.
And one of the cool things with OnRobot grippers, for instance, is that you can easily modify it, right? So we talk about high mix, low volume for SMEs typically, right? Where you work with different kind of products, different shape, different size, and so on. So for instance, this gripper, you might, in reality, you might be working with, bottles. It could be 3 or 4 or 5 different sizes of bottles. So you can actually fully control the force and the stroke. You can change the fingertips and so on of this gripper to pick up different shapes and sizes in the same cycle.
So now the second tray where we load in, so I'll just shift it in a different angle, so you can see that the robot will still go back to the same spot that we taught every single time.
And also for our vision system, which is 2.5D. So if you're not familiar with the difference between 2.5, and 3D, so basically 2.5D. The half D is basically the set direction, so you can measure height. So it could also be you're picking up different bottles in different heights, where normally you would have to put waypoints, but with using our camera, you don't really need to. The camera will tell the gripper where to pick it up from. That was simple.
Yep.
Very easy, very fast.
So after that, then after the boxes are packed, then maybe we move on to the next process or next steps that needs to be done. Okay, so I'll just move this to one side.
And of course, everything here, you won't hear any noise on anything, because basically everything we do is electric, right? There's no pneumatics, no need for air supply, hoses going down for air and so on. It's very quiet. Even if you're in production setup, sometimes you might not have areas, with a lot of noise. You need something that is also not too noisy. So perfect.
Okay, so this second application is pretty much the same. But this time around, instead of picking bottles, we have like metal sheets. Okay, so it's just an example. So what we're gonna the main point to tell you is that we can actually easily change the grippers around. Okay, so for this application, we're also using the dual setup. We are not using the eyes. Okay, for this particular one, we're just using the electric gripper. And of course, another gripper which we have is called the MG10. So this is a magnetic gripper. So we're going to pick the metal sheets piece by piece. Okay. So how easily to change? That's it within seconds. Okay. In hardware wise, that's it. All right. And then of course we need to load the new program that was done.
So again, we're talking about flexibility here, right? Where some of you might be worried, we're investing, a lot of money, and maybe we can, maybe after 1 year we can't use it anymore because it's set up for one specific application which we no longer do, or we work with a different product or something. So again, one of the key things with a collaborative setup, and especially flexible systems like what OnRobot offers you, is that you can basically, as I said, you just saw it now, you can change between end effectors literally in seconds, right? And if you have a setup like this, with wheels on, you can move it easily around your production hall, move it from one process to another process and you can use it different places for different types of products, different processes, and so on. Very, very simply.
Okay, so let's just play. It's pretty much the same thing, packaging. Okay. So the good thing about the MG10, you can actually control the magnetic strength. Okay, so we can actually pick sheet by sheet. Okay, instead of some magnetic grippers out there that you cannot control the magnetic strength. Okay, and then that will in turn you will pick two sheets together. Okay, but for this particular case, we can pick sheet by sheet. Okay, that's to control. That's the flexibility of the gripper itself.
Another thing is when we talk robot types, right? I mean, you might have different types of robots in your production hall if you already have automated. It could be cobots, you might have SCARA, you might have, light industrial robots, and so on and so forth. A fantastic thing with the OnRobot system is we call it one system, zero complexity. So basically, the mechanical installation, regardless of what kind of robot you're using, is exactly the same. It doesn't matter how you integrate, whether it's digital I/O, Ethernet IP, or Modbus, for instance. But you can also use the same software. So for digital I/O, if that's how you integrate, we have what we call our WebLogic, which is a free IP-based software you can use to program all the OnRobot end effectors very, very easily, very, very fast. So again, one system, zero complexity. It doesn't matter how many different types of robots you're having in your production hall. You can actually switch between or use the system, the OnRobot system, in the same way. So we hope this showed you a little bit on how easy it could be to set on applications. We understand this, of course, is super simple. Many of your processes might be a little bit more complex, but generally speaking, we have end users that have basically bought a cobot, bought end effectors from OnRobot, installed it themselves, done the program themselves without ever having done it before. So it really is that simple. So again, we hope you have learned something new today. And of course, if you haven't seen the videos before, the first three is already on our YouTube channel. So you have the why, the when, the where, and the what, and the how, as is here today, will be uploaded as well soon to our YouTube channel. So please subscribe to it. Subscribe to our other social media channels like LinkedIn and WhatsApp and Facebook and so on, and follow us. When we have more either webinars or new products come out and so forth and so on. So for now, thank you for this time. We are going to go to the Q&A session now, so stay tuned, and hopefully you have a lot of questions that we can help you with. So thank you again. I hope you're able to learn maybe something new today that you weren't aware of, especially if you're new to the whole automation setup and how to have automation and so on. So in the short break we had, I was just giving a sheet with a few questions, which I'll read up now, and Brenton and I will answer them. So the first one, can you share the application evaluation form with me? Well, I don't have an official form. I mean, I have a very, very short one, which is I mentioned some of the questions that you need to ask yourself once you get started. If you're really interested in this sort of shorter form of it, just as a starting point, I'm happy to share it with you. Just send us an email at apac@onrobot.com and request for the application evaluation form, and I'll share it with you if you're interested in that. Second question, do you know a system integrator that can help us with a solution for an application we are considering to automate, including installation and costing? Sure. Same thing again. As I think I mentioned in one of the first coffee chat YouTube live seminars we did, I mentioned that the way OnRobot is working is basically through we call them partners, but system integrators around the region. So Same thing as before. Send us an email at apac@onrobot.com, just mentioning who you are, where you're from, country and location and so on, and what kind of application you're looking at, and then we can share with you or put you in contact with the best possible partner for this. Can your magnetic gripper pick up on round items around bars as well? I think I'll get Branson to answer that question.
So we do have the cylindrical fingertips. I don't have it here right now. So we can join. We can use those fingertips, and there's a range of diameters that you can actually pick. I can't remember the exact specifications, but you can actually get it from a website in the data sheet. Okay, so you can just attach the cylindrical fingertips, and then that we can actually use it for cylindrical pieces.
All right. We have one final question at this point in time. Is your quick changer able to work with non-OnRobot tools as well? Maybe you will answer that as well. Is your quick changer able to work with non-OnRobot tools?
Yes. So we do have this a product called the Quick Changer Tool Site. So what it does is you can actually attach this particular quick changer to the quick changer robot site, and then at the bottom of the tool site, you can actually mount your own. You can create a bracket to mount your own gripper onto it, and then that in turn will actually provide you with a quick changer between our robot, with our products and your own customized gripper.
So you can use it. Basically, you can get the single quick changer and just use your own third-party tool if you want, or you can have like the dual setup here. So, for instance, you can have one robot tool plus one third-party tool, depending on what you require. So there's a lot of flexibility in this as well. So that was the last of the questions I have. I don't know, Inga, are there any more questions from the audience? No, no more. So again, thank you for joining us this last coffee chat we have at the moment. So this session will be live on, it will be posted on our OnRobot YouTube channel soon. So you will have all the 4 different sessions, so you can go in and review them if you want to see them again, or if you want to share with your colleagues or friends. Just give them the links. And please, as I said earlier, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on, so you can keep on getting updated information about our webinars, new products, and so on from OnRobot. So thank you again. Stay safe out there, and see you soon again. Thank you.